Welcome everyone. We're going to be taking a look at the second reading from Mass on Sunday, this past Sunday. And it's written by Paul to the church in Corinth, which is a city in Greece. And like I said, we're starting to introduce the Connections program here to the Malvern Retreat House. We're doing it in person for Lent. We may be doing it as well on Zoom for the Easter season. So there's always a little brief explanation of the first reading and the second reading so that we can appreciate these readings a little better. So anyway, here we go. Paul preached the gospel of Jesus Christ to both Jews and to Greeks, to Gentiles, to non-Jewish people. The Jews would accept the gospel if there were signs and miracles to prove it. The Greeks would accept it if it was a wisdom or a type of philosophy that helped them make sense of the world. Well, Paul says that he preaches Jesus Christ crucified, which is a sign and it is a type of wisdom, but not what they were expecting. To those who are called by God, Jesus is a sign of the power of God. To those who are called by God, he is also the wisdom of God. The problem is some of these people refused to answer the call. So, let's take a look at Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, Jews demand signs, and Greeks look for wisdom. But we proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews, and foolishness to the Gentiles. But to those who are called, Jews and Greeks alike, Christ, the power of God, and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, so this is a good example of a technique that Paul often uses. You know, he starts contrasting and comparing things. He does this all throughout his letters. So he says, brothers and sisters, he's writing to people who do believe in Jesus Christ. These letters were probably proclaimed when the Christians came together for the Eucharist. They would read the Old Testament, and then Paul's writings were the first of the New Testament to be written. So then they would also probably read them. So at Mass, in somebody's home probably, or outside, away from spying eyes, they would read this. So a person would stand up and say, brothers and sisters, Jews demand signs, and the Greeks, oops, there's a contrast, Jews and Greeks, and the Greeks look for wisdom. They want signs, the Greeks want wisdom. But we proclaim Christ crucified. So Paul is there with some of his assistants. He doesn't say I, he says we who came here as missionaries, we proclaim Jesus Christ, and not just Jesus Christ in glory, Christ crucified. Okay, then he's going to say Christ crucified is a stumbling block to Jews, because they believed, how could God ever bless someone who was hung on a tree? And then he says, and to the Greeks, it's the same way. But, this is what Paul says, Christ is the power of God. So he's saying, listen, Christ is the power of God to you Jewish people. And then he says, and Jesus Christ is the wisdom of God to the Greeks or the Gentiles. For, now he's going to flip. So now he goes back to this group. He says, for the foolishness of God, Jesus Christ dying on a cross, the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. So the foolishness of divine wisdom is wiser than so-called human wisdom. And the weakness of God, the weakness of divine weakness, is stronger than human strength. So there's a nice contrast back and forth. It's a fun reading to read. I would encourage you to read this throughout the day. This is Wednesday. This is kind of part of our spiritual reading plan. And in the Connections book, there's always space for people to journal about the readings. And for the first reading and the second reading and for the responsorial psalm, we're always encouraging people to write in the book about how that could relate to your life. So I would encourage you to do that. How does the strength, the weakness, the desire for signs and proof relate to your life? Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day. God bless.